Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Haley and I have mitochondrial DNA disease and I post a video every Friday, and most of the time it's going to be mito related videos, but sometimes it will be fun videos. This time it's kind of like a mixture of both. And I have a special guest. In today's video I'm going to be asking my mom questions like related to mito and stuff, and what it's like to have a child with mito and chronic illnesses. So well, please keep on watching and we'll get started. Okay. And at the end there's going to be a pop quiz. So
can I study?
No. Oh, that's why it's called the pop quiz, isn't it? So it pops out of nowhere.
That's not why it's called the pop quiz.
What led up to my diagnosis with mito?
Well, there's many things. First, when you were born, you had central sleep apnea, which is not like obstructive sleep apnea. Central sleep apnea is what happens in a baby's brain and would tell her body to, her heart rate would go down really low and then she would stop breathing. And we found this out by having an apnea monitor and having several tests in the hospital. And she was in the hospital for a week when she was 7 weeks old. And that is when she was diagnosed through MRIs, and they did sleep studies and all kinds of tests at that time. And they put her on a medication called theophylline, which would increase her bronchodilation, and I'm sure I'm saying that incorrectly, but it would make her body breathe basically. And we wanted to keep her breathing because we kind of liked her. And so
The medication.
Yeah, so the medication unfortunately had a terrible side effect, which would mean she would be up for
40
days at a time. One time she was up for 36 straight hours, and not crying. No, happy baby for 36 straight hours. So
it's
that
better
was
than screaming though.
It is better than screaming. I think I was crying by the end of that. So that was when she was a baby, and then she was slow to meet developmental milestones. So she sat up a little bit later than all the other kids. She walked later. Like, instead of walking at 1, she didn't walk till she was almost, well, you were like 16 months old when she started walking. And then she crawled later. Everything was like always a little bit behind her peers, and they kept telling me not to worry. And then when she was, I think she was close to a year old, she was diagnosed with what they thought was mild cerebral palsy, because she kind of, I think it's called pronate, I could be wrong, her arm a certain way and her ankles curved in like this and she didn't have the strength to walk, so they got her.
Don't my ankles still curve in?
They did. So they're these cute little tiny things that used to fit inside of her shoes, and within a week after getting those, she was walking. And I kept questioning if all of these things were related, and they kept telling me no, I was crazy. And then the first time that we can remember back to when she had her first vomiting episode was about 6 months of age.
And that was due to cyclic vomiting syndrome, but we didn't know that at the time.
They kept telling me she had the stomach flu.
For like 5 years straight.
Possibly some of the times it was, but
yeah.
It became more cyclic, which means it became more regular. So it went from being like once every 6 months to once every 3 months to once every 2 months. And she would be in and out of the hospital.
And I would be on IV fluids like dextrose, which we now know what that does is whenever I'm on it, it helps create extra energy so my body can function more normally. But at that time I was only on those IV fluids because I was dehydrated.
Right. And so she would be on IV fluids, and it wasn't until she just had back-to-back episodes when she was about 4.5, and the doctor was sure it was her kidneys, because my husband has kidney problems and had kidney surgery as a baby, and so they did kidney surgery on Haley and fixed a reflux problem with her kidneys,
which would have had to be fixed anyways.
And lo and behold, a week after she got out of the hospital, she was back in the hospital with a cyclic vomiting episode.
And that could have actually been brought on by the anesthesia, as we know.
As we now know. And so then her doctor sent us back to the same neurologist that we were seeing, but a different one in the same clinic. He was the one that diagnosed Haley with cyclic vomiting syndrome.
Oh, he was? I thought it was Dr.
Oh,
sorry.
You were little, you don't know. But then we were going to a support group for children with cyclic vomiting syndrome in our area. And they had her doctor come in and speak, and that was the first time I ever saw him. And I was like, oh my gosh, my kid has to get to him no matter what it takes. I don't care if he's covered under insurance or what. And so we wound up going to see him. His soonest appointment on an even emergency basis at that time was six months in advance. So it took us 6 months to get in to see him.
And right as we got in, he started having a waiting list and would not accept any more patients. And he doesn't accept any more new patients.
Right, so it was just by the grace of God that we got in when we did. And
at that time, the only way back then to know for sure I had Mito would be doing a muscle biopsy, but both my parents and my genetic doctor, didn't think it was going to be beneficial, but I met like all the symptoms, all the criteria of Mito and CVS, so it wasn't like we were just treating something that could.
Right, because you can have cyclic vomiting syndrome without having mitochondrial disease. You can also have mitochondrial disease and not have cyclical vomiting syndrome.
Yes.
So we just treated her like she had Mito. The treatment would not have changed at all one way or another. And so we did that, and
for 6 years I had no episodes.
Right.
But then I relapsed in 2012, but you can go back to my first video or one of my old blog posts and you can read about that.
So basically that was our road to Mito and how we discovered that our little friend here was going to...
Oh, and by the way, I don't have cerebral palsy.
No, she never had cerebral palsy. That's all part of mitochondrial disease.
At any point in my life, even before diagnosis or after my diagnosis, were you in denial?
Yes, I was in denial when you had your 6-year break. We thought that you grew out of it. This is all before we knew what mitochondrial disease was.
Well, to be fair, everybody kind of was on the same.
Because she didn't have any other symptoms. She really didn't. It was very well controlled with medication. So other than being a little more tired and a little more, I'd say a little tiny bit weaker than her peers, she kept up with everybody. She kept up with schoolwork. She would walk places, run places. She played soccer, everything. So I wouldn't say so much in denial. I really thought that you grew out of it. And then I just really came to a point where I was like, yeah, she has this, even when it came back in 2012, but it's really not that bad. I mean, we can deal with CVS. We'll get your medication under control. You'll be fine. It's not that bad.
And it was not as easy as we thought it would be. The next question is, what is it like having a child with Mito?
It's challenging. It's challenging to have a child with a chronic illness that no one sees or understands, because if you look at her, she looks totally normal. She looks great. And she does look really great right now.
Yeah.
It's just challenging because people ask all the time, is there a cure? Is there something you can do? Is there, this special potion, whatever? And the answer is no, there isn't. There is nothing anyone can do short of God healing her, and He has healed her
From a certain...
From an episode, from a catastrophe happening. And He's chosen...
I almost didn't make it in that,
He's chosen to heal her for now.
How hard is it with me having 5 bajillion chronic illnesses? Other than Mito, because...
Well, I think it just depends on the day on how hard it is. I mean, there's a lot of times, like now, that you're becoming a lot more self-sufficient. I don't have to do a lot for you. You're a pretty typical 15-year-old.
Except for... washing my hair.
I do have to help her wash her hair because of her Broviac. The placement of it is redunculus, and so she can't, no matter how hard we try, we cannot cover it 100% and not get it wet. So I wash her hair and she finishes up the job. But there was a time where when she was really sick, I had to bathe her and even help her brush her teeth and help feed her, and that was very hard. That was very, very hard, and it just depends on the day. And some days are really hard. Dealing with someone that has memory issues. For those of you who have a loved one with a memory issue, whether it be something simple or something as complex as Alzheimer's, memory issues are very challenging, and especially when she gets very ill and she can't even remember if she went to the bathroom. That's very hard, emotionally hard. And so I think it just depends on the day. I mean, most of the time I don't look at her and say, gosh, you're my chronically ill child that has this horrible disease, this life altering. I look at her as my child who just, she still has to do chores and homework, and even because I homeschool her, and even when she got out of the hospital getting her Broviac placed the next day, I was like, sorry, you have to do schoolwork.
The only reason was because that was like my last week of school, and that's the only reason why I had motivation to do school, was to finish it for the year.
So, plus it kept her mind occupied. But, I mean, she's just a typical 15-year-old taking driver's ed and, shopping and getting her eyebrows waxed and just normal, typical kids. So,
what are some of the kindest things people have done for us?
Okay. So some of the kindest things people have done for us, of course, number one is prayer. I have a group of ladies that I can text anytime, day or night, and they're on prayer for us. So that's, and then probably cards is the next thing, cards and kind wishes. She has, which you guys can't see, but her friend made her this picture frame, and in the picture frame are these strings with little clothespins, and they have little well wishes from some
Bible
kids
verses.
and Bible verses from
some kids at church on the worship team.
And of course, you can't see this beautiful room she's in, but our wonderful friend Bethany, we call it Extreme Makeover Bethany Edition, and she organized this entire room makeover and set up an online Amazon gift wish list.
And like, people bought stuff for my room, which is the sweetest thing, because like,
they bought this headboard, they bought her office chair, which is right there.
My curtains.
Curtain rods.
Yeah, a lot. And that always means a lot.
That was very touching. Pillows. Also, when she was really ill, well, from the beginning of this year, friends set up to bring us meals. If it wasn't 3 or 4 times a week, then it was a couple of times a week, every other day. At least for the first 8 months of this year, I have had meals at least once a week, to where I finally had to say, she's doing fine. We really don't need meals anymore. But that was fantastic to know that at least once or twice a week, I wouldn't have to think about what to feed my family. It was just, I would get a little knock on the door and someone would show up. And the best day was when Bethany, of course, again, I had forgot that she was supposed to bring us a meal, and I had been coming back from LA, which is a really long ways away from our house, and it was a 3.5-hour drive home on a Friday night when she was in the hospital, and I just got home and I had nothing in the refrigerator to feed the boys, and was in tears because I couldn't think about getting back in the car, and literally 30 seconds later she's knocking on the door with a whole meal for me and the boys to eat, and that was amazing. And so, and then just
people asking us, not just me, but like both of my parents and my brothers, asking how they're doing, because yes, I'm the one who is sick, but they deserve as much attention and love as, because they're awesome.
well, she's awesome, and just the fact that people were willing and cared to ask how we're doing, dropping in on us unexpected. People don't do that nowadays.
Yeah.
And just having people come over and give us flowers, leaving them on our doorstep. Just amazing. The amazing kindness and generosity that people showed us during this time is just amazing.
Yes. From our homeschool group, our church family, and even people we don't even personally know them come up to us at church and say, hey, I've been praying for you. How are you doing?
Right. And then one of the best gifts that we got during this time was right at the beginning when she got her Broviac. There was another Mito family that their baby unfortunately passed away from mitochondrial disease 3 years ago, and baby Leia donated this beautiful bed that we're sitting on. It's an adjustable bed.
So it can go up and down, and the end of the bed can go up and down, so if I need to, my legs could be elevated, which they needed to be, because I was laying down all the time and I had really bad swelling.
These beds are very expensive, and me and my husband were just discussing whether or not to get her one the day before. And this was just completely a gift from God that we hadn't even discussed with anyone, and the very next day it was gifted to us. So it's just amazing.
And it doesn't look like a hospital bed. It's like the comfiest thing ever. We are very grateful for this bed, and it's been a tremendous help, especially when I got my central line. I was able to get up from bed because the only pain med that wasn't an opiate I could take was ibuprofen, because every single other painkiller is mitotoxic for me. What is the scariest thing that's happened to me with Mito?
Well, there's been a couple of things. I know that you're thinking of what just happened, which was the scariest thing, but I was remembering in 2012 or 13 when the episodes started coming back, and you had just come home from the hospital with a CVS episode, and we thought you were having a heart attack, and we had to call 911. And she came in and said she was having chest pain and trouble breathing, and her lips were purple, and she couldn't stand up. And we had to call 911. And of course, by the time the ambulance got here, because her blood pressure was sky high, it was like 200 over 110. And by the time the ambulance got here,
which is like that's really high for me, because
she takes a beta blocker, so it lowers her blood pressure, so it was really high, which is all part of dysautonomia. But so we called 911, and by the time the ambulance got here, of course, her blood pressure was completely normal. And they're asking, do you want her to go to the hospital? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what just happened to her. And of course, they did an EKG and everything, and she was fine.
Everything was fine, and my doctor emailed us the next day and said it was a dysautonomic episode. Thank goodness that hasn't happened before. Although when I was in the hospital recently,
it's happened a couple of times, but you were able to breathe through
not as
it,
bad,
and because of knowing what it was. I think the scariest part was not knowing what it was. But I would say that by far the scariest thing that's ever happened to you is what just happened to you with almost losing you. That was really, really hard. That was very scary, because we honestly didn't know. We did not know going and dropping her off at the hospital with my husband if she would be there the next day. And just sleeping with the phone right next to my head, because I didn't know if I was going to get the call in the middle of the night. So that was really hard.
Okay, what is the weirdest or stupidest thing a doctor or nurse has ever said? You have to choose at least 2 different things. Because
2 different things? There's so many to choose from.
I know, that's why.
I would say probably when you were 4 and the nurse thought I was poisoning you. That would be one of the top ones.
Didn't they do
They did a heavy metal poisoning test because they thought you were being poisoned. Then I would say when we took you to the pain specialist, and the pain specialist told you to,
like, her exact words,
take a dance class and hang out with your friends more, because you're obviously depressed because you're homeschooled.
How do you get pain when you are completely happy and carefree? Like,
I don't know. I think people have not met you. So the only other thing I can think of right now is when you were in the hospital in January and they were trying to wean you off of D10, and they wanted her to drink Crystal Light and put sugar in it so she could increase her oral intake. Oh, and eat a candy bar, because that would be healthy and wise.
For any patient.
And lo and behold, every time she would do that, she would feel more terrible because she'd get a big dose of insulin to drop her blood sugar. So that was crazy.
And can I just say that, like, the second or third day they kept giving me Crystal Light, I just poured it in the sink. Like, we knew it wasn't working and it was stupid, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, pop quiz time?
Well, Not yet.
Oh.
Okay. What has helped you get through things?
My faith in God, number one, helped me get through it. My family. You coming in here and always knowing she has such a joyful attitude, even when she was going through a really hard time, just knowing that you had a really, really joyful attitude towards things, that I couldn't be down. If I knew that you were going through something, then I couldn't, say, gosh, it's really hard to get laundry done today. So.
Pop quiz time.
Dun, 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 dun.
To test her knowledge on some things. Some of these questions are hard, but not really at the same time. Okay, so the first question is all together, not excluding the antibiotic I'm off of. But altogether, how many meds do I take?
Do you know this answer?
Yes.
Did you count?
I counted.
Oh, gosh. Including the oils and stuff? 22? No?
23. You were really close.
Oh, I was so close.
How many conditions do I have?
How many conditions do you have? Let's see, you have
mitochondrial DNA disease, you have cyclic vomiting syndrome, you have complex regional pain syndrome, you have dysautonomia, gastroparesis, dysmotility, 6. No, wait, chronic fatigue syndrome, POTS. What am I forgetting? There's something you're forgetting. I feel like it's something. Hold on, that's 8. Hemophiliac migraine. Oh, cheater. 9.
The next pop quiz question is, or the last one is, I will give you a sample, like 3 of my conditions, and you'll have to figure out which one came first.
Okay.
Okay. Hemiplegic migraines, complex regional pain syndrome, or... Okay, I guess it's just you. Hemiplegic migraines or complex regional pain syndrome.
Complex regional pain syndrome.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. What message do you want to share? What do you want to say to people who are struggling with stuff, whether it be chronic illness related or not?
Well, can I give a message to the moms out there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for all the moms that are struggling with anything, I would just say to turn to your Heavenly Father first. God always has the answer for you. Lean on your faith, lean on your family, and lean on your friends. Always find joy in every single thing that you do every single day, because even when it's at the bleakest moment of your life, there's always something to find joy in. And for me, on the darkest days when Haley was so sick, something as simple as buying a homeless man a hamburger, or finding a beautiful butterfly, or listening to the giggles of your other children, or something to find joy in every single thing, because there are a lot of dark days, there's a lot of scary days, and there's a lot of days when you're just so busy, crazy with going to doctor's appointments and going to therapy appointments and trying to fight with insurance companies and dealing with your other kids and your daily chores, that sometimes you forget to find joy in those things. But always find joy in every single thing you do every single day.
Okay.
So
anyways.
bye for now. Find joy in all you do. What?